A Montana bank seized 1,500 acres from a widower, who warned them, more than once, that something was wrong. They ignored him anyway. The land had been his for decades, earned, not given, and now it was slipping away over paperwork he insisted was false. He stated it without hesitation, standing in that office, and nobody took him seriously. Weeks later, everything changed. A courtroom fell completely silent as a judge reviewed evidence nobody expected to see. What happened in that room stunned everyone watching. Tell me below in comments, where are you watching from tonight? The widower had worked that land for over 40 years, building it acre by acre until it reached 1,500. Every fence line, every stretch of pasture, carried decades of labor behind it. None of it had been handed to him. He'd earned every part of it with his own hands, alongside a wife who stood beside him through every hard season until she passed. After her death, he kept the ranch running alone. He managed the books himself, paid every loan on schedule, and never once fell behind. The bank had no reason to doubt him. His record was clean for years. Inside that branch office, nothing about his tone suggested doubt. The bank had restructured under new management, and somewhere inside that change, a claim appeared against his land. A lien he had never agreed to, tied to paperwork he didn't recognize. He went straight to the desk and laid it out clearly. The representative reviewed the documents, noted they were properly filed, and told him there was nothing further to discuss unless he wanted to submit a formal dispute. He left that office with no resolution and a warning still ringing in his ears. His own warning, the one nobody had bothered to take seriously. That should have been the end of it. A quiet injustice absorbed and forgotten the way so many are. It wasn't, because while he drove home turning the conversation over in his mind, the bank had already begun moving forward with the paperwork required to act on that disputed lien, long before any formal dispute of his would ever reach a desk that mattered. That evening, he pulled out every record he and his late wife had ever kept. She had always been the meticulous one, organizing receipts and loan documents by year, filing everything the way a person files things when they expect someday it might matter. He went through the papers one at a time, checking each loan against what the bank was now claiming. Every past agreement was accounted for. Every one had been closed and paid in full years earlier. None of them referenced the disputed lien or the acreage the bank now claimed as collateral. Buried near the back of one folder, he found something that stopped him. A dated receipt, tied to work done on the property, placed him somewhere specific on the exact day the disputed document claimed he had been at the bank signing paperwork. He read the date twice to be certain. It didn't match. He hadn't been anywhere near that office on the day the bank said he had. If you've made it this far, you already understand how these situations usually go. Quietly, unfairly, and mostly unnoticed. If you want to see exactly how this one turns, stick around and consider subscribing, because what he found next is the reason this story is still being told. He tracked down the person who could confirm where he'd actually been that day, someone with records of their own, precise enough to settle the matter beyond doubt. That conversation would end up mattering more than either of them expected. The person he tracked down still had records from that exact day, kept the same careful way for years. It took only minutes to find the entry confirming exactly where he had been, and at what time. Hours before the bank claimed he was somewhere else, entirely signing away part of his land. The timestamps didn't leave room for interpretation. One placed him miles from the bank. The other, on the disputed document, claimed he'd been there in person less than half an hour later. He asked if they would be willing to put that in writing. They agreed without hesitation, signed a sworn statement on the spot, and admitted they were sorry it had come to this. With that statement in hand, he brought everything to a local attorney, a quiet, unassuming man who worked out of a small office and had a reputation for taking cases seriously without ever overselling the outcome. The attorney reviewed every document, the receipts, the timestamps, the sworn statement, and agreed the evidence was strong enough to file immediately. The case was submitted to the county court that same week. A hearing date was set for several weeks out, giving the bank time to prepare a defense they still believed they didn't need. He went back to work on the ranch in the meantime, tending to the land as he always had, carrying the steady confidence of a man who finally had something solid behind him. Across town, the bank's attorneys were preparing for what they still assumed would be a routine hearing, completely unaware how thoroughly that assumption was about to collapse. The morning of the hearing, the bank's attorneys arrived early, confident, treating the proceeding as a formality they expected to close within the hour. His attorney kept his remarks brief. He simply placed the documents on the table, one at a time. the sworn statement, the dated receipt, the original loan records, and the notarization timestamp from the disputed lien. The judge reviewed each page carefully, without comment, taking noticeably longer than anyone in the room expected. When he finally looked up, he said nothing at all. He simply set the documents down and looked toward the bank's attorneys. That silence said everything the room needed to understand before a single ruling word was spoken. The bank's lead attorney looked down at the table. The confidence from earlier that morning had already disappeared. When the judge finally spoke, the ruling was direct. The disputed lien was invalid. The claim against the 1,500 acres was dismissed entirely. The bank was ordered to cover the legal costs and to provide written confirmation within 30 days that the widower's land was fully and permanently clear. He sat through the ruling, showing no visible reaction beyond a slow nod. Outside the courthouse, there were no crowds and no celebration. Just a man walking back to his truck, the same way he had walked into that bank weeks earlier, except this time carrying proof instead of a warning nobody had listened to. He kept his land, every acre of it. Word moved through town without ceremony. Nobody made a spectacle, they just nodded. Things are worth fighting for. Tell me below, has your family ever fought to hold on to land?